In the 1970 to 1971 season, Arsenal FC, the Gunners of London, thrilled fans all over the world, writing a real-life fairy tale by winning an unprecedented double national championship and FA Cup. With a generation of talented players who not only played football with their feet, but also with their fiery hearts, they demonstrated a tough playing style, a famous steel defense combined with explosive moments of youth. They not only achieved success in terms of titles, ending a 17-year title drought, but also became an unforgettable part of the memories of an entire generation of English football lovers. Especially the image of young Charlie George lying with his arms outstretched on the Wembley grass. But behind those glorious moments on the pitch are very unique human fates. More than 50 years have passed. Time, like a cruel sculptor, has carved indelible marks on their lives. Some became legends on the coaching bench. Some chose a quiet life in a foreign land. And there were also those who had to stop their journey in tragedy and illness. Let me look back at the ups and downs of the 11 names that made up the soul of Arsenal's golden generation that year. Bob Wilson was the embodiment of security and intelligence in the Arsenal goal that season. At 29, the Scot was not only the last line of defense, but also a rock of morale. With his lightning reflexes and fearless runs, Wilson kept clean sheets in the most important moments, playing all 42 games. He was not a wild goalkeeper, but a calm, composed keeper who played with the mindset of a former teacher. Using his knowledge after hanging up his gloves, Bob Wilson built an illustrious career as a broadcaster and football pundit for the BBC for decades. He became a familiar face, his warm voice guiding audiences through the World Cups. However, his life also experienced great pain when his daughter Anna passed away from cancer at the age of 31. Turning grief into action, he and his wife founded the Willow Foundation, a charity that brings joy to the terminally ill. The most remarkable thing about him is his consistency. On the pitch, Bob Wilson is the plastic arm protecting the Arsenal goal. In real life, he continues to use his kind hands and heart to protect and soothe the pain of the unfortunate. A true gentleman of football who has turned his own pain into common hope. Today, at 83, Bob Wilson remains one of the most revered icons at Arsenal. Although he has retired from the limelight, he is still passionate about charity work, his journey a testament to the kind heart hidden behind the warrior exterior. Frank McLintock was the heart, the lungs, and the commanding voice of Arsenal in 1971. At 31, after bitter defeats in previous finals against Leicester, McLintock was transformed when he was moved from midfield to sweeper. With his fiery, fearless, but also intelligent style of play, he was named the Football Writers Association FWA Player of the Year. That season, he was the man who lifted the team's spirits when everything seemed to be falling apart. After his peak, McLintock's life was a series of ups and downs for a man who refused to sit still. He tried his hand at coaching without much success, then turned to running pubs and working as a player agent. He faced financial difficulties and the harshness of life after retirement. But his captain's fortitude kept him going. He became a sharp commentator on Sky Sports, always keeping the passion burning when talking about football. There was an uncanny resemblance between McLintock on and off the field. He never gave up while he was a firebrand on the field. He also bravely overcame business failures to regain his position. He was a model of resilience, a typical Scottish tough guy. Today, at the age of 84, Frank McLintock is enjoying a peaceful retirement, but is still a regular at the Emirates Stadium. He is a living legend who is still greeted with a standing ovation by the fans whenever he returns to his old home. Bob McNab was an indispensable piece on the left wing of the Gunners. At 27, he brought absolute stability, a complete defender with great physical strength McNab was not flashy, but his diligence and discipline were the launching pad for the attacking players to shine. 41 appearances that season were a testament to the resilience of this Huddersfield man, an important link in Arsenal's concrete defense system. After leaving English football, McNab made a bold decision to move to the United States to play and settle. He became one of the pioneers of football in the land of the Stars and Stripes, participating in the NASL, and then moving into futsal coaching. His life in sunny California was a far cry from the fog of London, where he was involved in real estate and community development. He built a new life, more liberal and free. The transition from a hard-working defender in England to a businessman and coach in the US shows a very different Bob McNab, willing to change and adapt. As disciplined on the pitch as he was off the pitch, he was flexible and open to adapting to new environments. Today, at the age of 81, Bob McNab lives a comfortable life in Los Angeles. He still watches Arsenal from across the ocean, proving that older players can succeed when they step out of their comfort zone. Pat Rice, a 21-year-old Northern Irishman, was the epitome of loyalty and dedication. In the 1977 season, he dominated the right-back position with his relentless and tireless style of play. Rice was like a hard-working bee, moving forward and back in rhythm, contributing to the balance of the team. He played with the pride of a goalkeeper, defending the Arsenal colors with all he had. Pat Rice's life seems to have been one of love. Arsenal. After hanging up his boots, he did not leave but continued to be associated with the club as a youth coach, and then as a valuable assistant to Arsène Wenger throughout the golden era of the Premier League. With more than 40 years of dedication, he is a living witness, a link between the past and the present. Recently, he had to fight cancer, a silent but equally fierce battle on the pitch. The image of Pat Rice on the field has been completely applied to his life. He is a silent hero, always standing behind to support others to shine, from his former teammates to Wenger. Later. His humility and loyalty are invaluable assets of modern football. Today, at the age of 75, Pat Rice has retired and is enjoying life with his family after overcoming illness. He is engraved in the hearts of fans as an eternal symbol of loyalty. A true Mr. Arsenal. Peter Storey was the butcher feared by opponents and loved by his teammates. At 25, he was the most ferocious stopper, willing to do the dirtiest work to protect his goal with his hard, uncompromising, and sometimes brutal style of play. Storey was a nightmare for opposing strikers. But make no mistake, he was also a versatile and technically gifted player who scored crucial goals to save Arsenal. After retiring, Storey's life was plagued by legal troubles and scandals. True to his image as a bad boy on the pitch, he was involved in legal trouble, with allegations related to counterfeiting and brothel business, a long slide that made him the focus of the tabloid press. He had to live in exile in France and Turkey to avoid troubles at home. His life is a sad rock song with low notes of rebellion and loss. There is a strange and somewhat tragic connection between Storey on the pitch and off. His aggression, recklessness, and rule-breaking on the pitch seem to have haunted his fate, making it impossible for him to find peace within the legal framework of his life. Today, after the storms of his youth, Peter Storey, at the age of 79, is living a quieter and more private life in the south of France. He has withdrawn from the noisy world of football, carrying with him the memories of a time of wildness, glory, but also full of flaws. John Roberts, a 24-year-old Welshman, was the perfect second man in that historic season. Although he only played 18 games, his versatility and strength made him an important strategic backup. Roberts played with seriousness and discipline, always completing his tasks. Whenever given the chance, he represented the silent heroes who accepted to step back so that the team could shine. After leaving Arsenal and wandering through a few other clubs, Roberts took a completely different path after retiring, becoming a police officer and then a driving instructor. He abandoned the limelight for community service, living a life as simple and disciplined as his football. He shunned the limelight, finding joy in his day job and family. The seriousness and responsibility of a defender followed him into the uniform. Roberts was a goalkeeper, on the field and off the field. He became a guardian of public order, a life of quiet and honorable dedication. However, the journey of that diligent guard had to stop. On January 4, 2016, John Roberts passed away at the age of 69 due to a lung disease. His departure was quiet, but left deep sorrow for those who remember a player who always devoted himself every time he wore the red and white shirt. Sammy Nelson, a 21-year-old Northern Irishman, was Arsenal's save that season. He played only 4 games, playing as a backup to Bob McNab. However, Nelson's cheerful, lively, and slightly mischievous personality always brought laughter to the dressing room. He represented youth, patience, and never-ending optimism. After the 1971 season, Nelson gradually asserted himself and became a legend at Highbury with more than a decade of dedication. He was famous for his shocking goal celebration showing his butt. After retiring, Nelson moved into the insurance industry and then worked as a tour guide at the Emirates Stadium Legend Tours. He used his humor and storytelling to connect fans with the club's history. Nelson's playful and outgoing personality on the pitch has made him a great storyteller off the pitch. He is a fun-loving, funny person who makes people laugh, just like the comedian he was in the team back then. Today, at the age of 75, Sammy Nelson is still a regular at Arsenal events. He still has a bright smile, continuing to inspire and delight new generations of fans with his witty stories about the glory days. Ray Kennedy was Arsenal's most brilliant flower in the 1977 season. At the age of 19, with the body of a giant but the feet of a dancer, he scored 19 goals, including the fateful header against Tottenham that won the national championship. Kennedy was the embodiment of power and sophistication, a natural talent that made the whole of England admire. He was the gentle giant of the Gunners. After leaving Arsenal, he continued to achieve greatness with Liverpool, becoming one of the most successful players in England. However, tragedy struck when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 30, shortly after retiring. The terrible disease robbed the giant of his physical strength, forcing him to sell his medal collection to cover medical expenses. His life was a long and lonely battle against the ravages of the disease. The contrast between the strong, gallant Ray Kennedy on the field and the shaky, weak Ray Kennedy in everyday life was heartbreaking. But his spirit remained the same, still resilient and enduring, as he used to press down on opposing defenders, never complaining. However, that glorious yet tragic journey has come to an end. On November 30th, 2021, Ray Kennedy passed away at the age of 70 after a courageous 37-year battle with Parkinson's disease. His passing leaves a huge void, but the image of the young man heading the ball into the Spurs net will be immortalized forever. George Graham, nicknamed Stroller, was Arsenal's brilliant brain. At 26, he played with a leisurely, elegant but calculating style. His 11 goals that season came from clever runs into the box, and his superb reading of the game. Graham didn't waste his energy. He used his head to control the ball, a true conductor of attacking play. After his playing career, Graham returned to Arsenal as a manager and ushered in another era of great success, winning titles. However, his reputation was tarnished by a transfer kickback scandal which saw him sacked and banned for a period. He returned to manage Leeds and Tottenham, but never regained his former glory. After retiring, he became a pundit and lived a wealthy private life. Graham's calculating and cleverness on the field has brought him great success in coaching, but it is also his excessive calculation in finance that has led to his biggest downfall in life. A talented but complex man, always walking the line between hero and villain. Today, at 79, George Graham lives a peaceful retirement in London, while his legacy may be tarnished. There is no denying his brilliance both on the field and behind the dugout. Charlie. George was an icon, the darling of Highbury. The 20-year-old with the long, flamboyant hair was the embodiment of rebellion and natural talent. The 1977 season, despite being plagued by injuries, he returned in time to score the winning goal in the FA Cup final, then collapsed on the pitch in celebration. An image that became iconic in English football. He played with instinct, spontaneity, and emotion. Charlie George's subsequent career was hampered by knee injuries which prevented him from reaching the heights he had hoped for. He wandered around many clubs before retiring. However, his love for Arsenal never faded. He returned to work as a host in the VIP area of the Emirates Stadium, welcoming fans with the warmth of a true Gooner. He also experienced major health problems, including having his toes amputated and having heart surgery. Charlie George is a romantic artist on the pitch, and off the pitch he still retains the dusty and sincere nature of a boy who grew up on the streets of Islington. He does not need flashy titles to be loved, because he is part of the soul of the club. Today, at the age of 74, Charlie George is still the king of Highbury in the hearts of fans. He is still working at the club, telling the story of that thunderbolt, proving a complete and loyal love for the red and white shirt. John Radford is the unsung hero of the attack. At 24, he is a tireless machine willing to sacrifice and be a wall for his teammates. 15 goals and especially important assists, including the assist for Charlie George in the FA Cup final, speak to his importance. Radford is not flashy. He is the type of player who works hard and puts efficiency first. After leaving Arsenal, Radford went on to play for West Ham and Blackburn before retiring. Unlike many of his peers, he chose the humble life of a pub owner and later returned to Arsenal as a stadium tour guide. He lived modestly close to the fans, never pretending to be a big star. He found joy in casual conversations over a beer with fans. Radford's diligence and dedication on the pitch reflects who he really is, simple and sincere. Doesn't need the spotlight because he knows his true value lies in his contribution to the team. Today, at 77, John Radford is enjoying a peaceful retirement. He remains a beloved figure in North London, an ordinary man who did extraordinary things, and who continues to serve the club in the most humble of ways. George Armstrong was Arsenal's lifeblood. It would be remiss to talk about the 1971 double without mentioning Geordie. At 26, he was the most industrious winger English football has ever produced. Armstrong didn't have the flamboyant Latin technique, but he had the ability to run non-stop for 90 minutes, going back and forth like a shuttle. It was his precise crosses that set up Ray Kennedy and John Radford for goals. He was the unsung hero who tore up the flanks to bring glory to the Gunners. George Armstrong is the definition of a legendary one-club man despite his brief spells at Leicester and Stockport towards the end of his career. After hanging up his boots, his love for Arsenal still burned brightly. He returned to the club as a reserve team coach, a dedicated teacher who mentored young talents like Tony Adams, Ray Parlour, and later Wenger's youth team. He lived and breathed the pulse of Highbury, a keeper of the fire, passing on the fighting spirit of the 71 generation to the younger generation. In real life, Armstrong was described as a humble, quiet, and extremely professional man. He never sought fame. His joy was simply standing on the field, whether as a player or a coach. He was a model of dedication, a hard worker in the glamorous world of football. Armstrong's tenacity and tirelessness on the pitch carried over into his life until the very end. He gave his all for Arsenal without stopping literally until his last breath. And then tragedy struck at the place he loved most. On November 1st, 2000, while leading a training session for Arsenal's reserve team, George Armstrong suddenly collapsed from a brain hemorrhage. He died at the age of 56, right on the training ground in his boots, still covered in grass. His sudden departure was a great shock, but also a tragic end to a man who had dedicated his entire life to the Gunners. Peter Simpson was often overshadowed by the noise of McLintock or the aggression of Storey in Arsenal's famous defensive system, but Simpson was the most reliable cleaner. At 25, he possessed an excellent reading of the game and the ability to initiate attacks from a distance rarely seen in centre-backs of the era. In 1977, Simpson was a safe stopper, always there to diffuse danger before it became serious. He was the calmness needed in a fiery defense. Simpson spent most of his career at Arsenal before moving to the United States to play for the New England T-Men. Unlike many of his teammates who chose to go into coaching, Simpson chose to completely retire from football after retiring. He values his privacy and dislikes the limelight. He found a new passion on the golf course and lives a quiet life. Little is known about Peter Simpson after his retirement, and that is exactly how he wanted it. He is a family man, enjoying his quiet days away from the media noise. He represents the type of player who plays for passion and sees it as a career, not a path to seek false fame. Simpson's calm and reserved demeanor on the pitch carried over into his personal life. He stayed back to enjoy life just as he often dropped deep to cover for his teammates. Today, at the age of 79, Peter Simpson is living a healthy and peaceful life. He rarely appears in public, but whenever the name Peter Simpson is mentioned at the Emirates, the older fans still give him absolute respect as a gallant and classy centre-back. Eddie Kelly. A young 19-year-old was a key player for Birdie Me. Although he was not a regular starter, history was made at Wembley coming on for the injured Peter Storey in the FA Cup final. Kelly scored the equalizer, although it was initially credited to George Graham history, later gave him justice. He became the first substitute to score in an FA Cup final. Kelly's youth and energy were a breath of fresh air as Arsenal turned the game around. After that shining moment, Kelly continued to dedicate himself to Arsenal and became the club's young captain at the age of 23. After retiring, he settled in Torquay and became an after-dinner speaker. He was a charming storyteller, often sharing anecdotes about his historic goal with fans. Eddie Kelly lived a happy and open life. He appreciated the past, but did not dwell on it. He always maintained good relations with former teammates and clubs. The story of the goal that was stolen and then returned was an interesting topic, which he always told with a humorous smile. As a young player who knows how to seize opportunities from the bench, Kelly is also a person who knows how to grasp joy from simple things. He is always ready to step into the light when needed. Now 73, Eddie Kelly remains a beloved figure in the Arsenal ex-player community. He is proof that history is sometimes written by outstanding supporting actors, and that one moment is enough to make a name for a lifetime. Peter Marinello arrived at Arsenal for a record fee and shouldered the expectation of becoming the George Best of Highbury. At the age of 20, with his handsome appearance like a pop star and skillful individual technique, he was the focus of the media. In the 1977 season, although he did not contribute as much in terms of skills as expected due to injuries and lifestyle, Marinello's presence still brought modern flashy color to a famously dry Arsenal. He was a symbol of 70s pop culture infiltrating football. Marinello's career is a classic tale of talent, mistimed, and temptation. He never reached the heights he had potential to reach. After retiring, he faced bankruptcy and severe financial difficulties. Marinello, however, did not give up. He wrote an autobiography, confronted his youthful mistakes, and found balance in his life. He played in charity matches and coached amateur football. Marinello's life has been a sine wave of peaks and valleys of failure, but in his old age he has found peace. He does not hesitate to share his failures as a lesson for the younger generation. Marinello's brilliance and fragility on the pitch every year is a picture of his life. Brilliant, noisy, but also full of scratches. But after all, he still stands up, shakes off the mud and stands up to shine. Today, at 74, Peter Marinello lives a modest life in England. He remains part of Arsenal's history. a reminder of the pressures of fame and the value of overcoming adversity. Geoff Barnett took on the role of reserve goalkeeper, the loneliest job in football at Arsenal in the 1977 season, with Bob Wilson playing so well. And consistently, Barnett's opportunities were few. However, he still trained hard, was Wilson's training partner, and was a moral supporter. Barnett's professionalism was crucial to maintaining stability in goal. He was the one standing in the shadows while the spotlight shone on his teammates. Realizing that there were not many opportunities in England, Barnett made a brave move, moving to the U.S. to play for the Minnesota Kicks. Here he found his own sky, became a real star, and was loved. He settled in the U.S., became a coach, and spent the rest of his life in the land of the stars and stripes. He found his own American dream after years of patience in London. Barnett loved life in America and completely embraced the culture. He lived happily ever after, away from the fog and pressure of English football. He was proof that if one door closes, another will open, if you have the courage to walk away. The patience on the bench trained Barnett to be brave enough to start over in a foreign country. He refused to be a shadow forever. He went to find his own light. However, the journey of that brave goalkeeper has stopped. On January 15, 2021, Geoff Barnett passed away in Florida, USA, due to complications from COVID-19 at the age of 74. He passed away in a foreign land, but in the hearts of Arsenal fans who understand history, he is still part of the great team of 1971.